So, as the web is untangling, we find that purification is happening. In truth, life is a constant purification, a constant surrender into itself, a constant transmutation. And the glory is that there is a wisdom that is carrying it all. We don't always recognize this wisdom because we are distracted in the mind. But there is a natural intelligence that is unraveling everything and allowing this great untangling to happen. Everything that we need is right here. The constant invitation of grace is to trust our own silence, our own silent depths, and the wisdom of who we are, and to be, we could say, guided by the inner light, by the wisdom light, by that which knows. We have learned to give power to seeming external systems, and we have learned that in order to get our needs met, that external systems are the way. And so we have learned from very young to overlook our inner knowing, our intuitive knowing, and the incredibly deep wisdom that we are fully equipped with. We have learned to identify with the story, with the thoughts, instead of to watch it and receive the wisdom and grace and the purification and clarifying that is happening in all of life. So let's take this from the top. Just being here, the simplicity of being, just the simplicity of being, the felt sense that you are here, before anything, before thought, before needs want to be met, before desire, just the very simple felt sense of being here now. There is freedom here, immediate freedom. But what happens is we are so used to identifying with the mind, the body, the story, the thoughts, and referencing past memory, that we are rarely, by learned habit, fully present here now in the presence of being. If we were able to truly, fully just be here, we would feel the glorious freedom and celebration and game over, gorilla, right? But we have learned to identify with the moving, changing, instead of resting in the stillness and silence of being, instead of resting in the natural presence of what is, just this, your own presence. And when we are constantly moving away from our own natural presence, we are also moving away from our natural wisdom, intelligence, intuitive knowing. Right? And we then feel lost at sea. And so we start grasping for life buoys and all kinds of ways to try to tell us who we are. Tell me who I am. Give me some information. Give me an identity. Make me feel good. Grasping for all of these ways to fill our buckets so that we can try to create a persona and cover up our deep sense that there is something wrong here. There's something wrong with me. Somehow I am lacking. There's something missing. I am deficient. Somehow there's something about me that is not okay. So please, world, please, external moving things, either cover that up, distract me, or give me something to identify with so that I feel like I am okay. But what we have come to realize is that any direction that we stretch in, that when we are identified with the moving, changing, there will always be change. Disappointment will always come. We will always outgrow whatever we identify with, because we're identifying with something that is limited when in truth we are unlimited. And until we fully identify with the unlimited reality of who we are, we will constantly be disappointed by identifying with limitation. And by identifying with limitation, we're speaking of everything in the world. Let's be honest. We're speaking of the whole life story, everything that you think you are. If you are identified with limitation, if you're identified with a job, with a certain kind of status, with a certain kind of financial situation, in relationships, if you're identified with any of that, at some point you will be disappointed because it will change and you will outgrow it. But your story of lack will tell you that it has outgrown you, that it's your fault, that you're not good enough, that somehow you have failed, right? Because we're not in identification with the true wholeness of who we are. Now, when we are living in the belief of the story of lack, and every being has a slightly different core belief, we could say, that essentially boils down to, I am not good enough, I am not whole, there is something wrong here. And what is wrong here is me. I am not good. I am unlovable, I am unworthy. Some flavor of this is playing as a core belief that the mind is created out of. It is, that is what the mind is. And then it is a movement to completely try to protect and cover up this deficiency. No, I'm good, okay, I'm okay. Look at what I'm doing, look at what I'm achieving. I'm good. See me as good, see me as whole. Do you see how good I am? Do you see how hard I'm trying? Right? So there's this constant way that we then are patching together a life identified with the moving, changing, and deeply rooted and driven by a story, a belief that we are not good enough, that we're somehow deficient and lacking. This is the whole structure of the human condition. It's not reality. But if we are living in identification with this, we will constantly be feeling pushed around, disappointed, in challenge and struggle, and also constantly striving to try to win the game of life, to try to win the game of me against all the odds. And the odds are that it's not a game that anyone can win, right? It's not good. You don't want to put all your bets there, that's for sure. What is constantly being invited is to see deeper, to open to a deeper wisdom, to open to the wisdom light that is inside, the wisdom light that is calling you to your whole self. Now, to be called to your whole self is the natural evolutionary impulse of consciousness to know and remember its divinity at every point where it is seemingly dancing as a being, as you. The impulse of consciousness is to know its divinity, remember its divinity at the point of you. It is the only purpose of a human life, in truth. It is the priority purpose. But we get so waylaid and distracted by trying to improve the me, by constantly extending our attention and identifying with the systems of the world and the external play of the moving, changing, believing that there is some way that I can make a better me, a good me. In truth, we come to the remembrance of what we are when that need to keep attempting to fix ourselves using the tools of the worldly falls away, because we see in the light of our own wisdom, our own perfection, the truth of who we are. And we realize that our core belief in lack, in unworthiness, in not enoughness is a complete myth. But my goodness, isn't it compelling? We can even have a glorious awakeness and remembrance of the truth of who we are, but still get pulled in by that story of lack. Now, what we are speaking of is being sure to identify with what is true and not to identify with what is not true. But the me in the mind is so invested in keeping itself alive and so invested in this belief in lack that it keeps pulling the attention. So the core belief is something very strong. The belief, I am broken, I am not worthy, I am unlovable, I am somehow lacking. And what we find is that underneath that core belief, underneath that story, which is the human condition, there are holding patterns and emotions that we have learned not to bring forward, not to feel, because it has not felt safe to feel those feelings. And if we keep pushing down our natural flow of feeling and knowing and being life, living itself, if we're living in constraint, limitation, restriction, suppression, then we will keep pushing down exactly what needs to be freed. We will keep pushing down, let's say, keeping the cork in the bottle when it wants to explode into the remembrance of its infinite, eternal, jubilant self. When we keep the cork in the bottle, we are on a certain level in our belief, keeping ourselves safe. Because if we don't feel those deeply held emotions like anger and grief and sadness and hurt and fear and anxiety, if we don't feel those, if we don't allow ourselves to feel those, then we will keep ourselves safe. That we learned to keep ourselves safe like a survival mechanism, completely innocently. But then this whole conditioned mechanism at the root of a human life becomes what is driving everything and is stopping us fully living in the wide open glory, uncorked, jubilantly free, effervescently alive, bubbling over like a wellspring of freshness, of truth, of clarity, of love, of wisdom light, right? So we have the resting here, the sense of being, the wide open field, and just the felt sense, I am here. A natural, simple resting as yourself. When we rest here as the openness, there is an openness that can be aware of all that is moving and changing in this moment. Thoughts that come and go. Body sensations that can be like holding patterns and tensions. And there are memories, a natural attachment to past, right? All of this is here in this moment. Sense perception and its ability to use the idea of a me and preference to fragment the moment. It's all here. You are the awareness of it all. As this presence of being, you are aware of everything that is here, that is moving and changing. And your superpower is that you are aware and you can recognize that you are aware of all that is moving and changing. And that as the awareness, you are not touched, you're not disturbed, you're completely still and free. Great glory. And yet, oh, how compelling it is to keep identifying with those moving, changing elements. How compelling it is to glob on to the next thought that comes in. And as soon as there's an attaching to a thought, the sense of I am becomes I am someone. I am hungry. I am cold. I am male. I am female. I am genderless. I am living here. I am the daughter, the son. I am the doctor. I am the accountant. I am the gardener. I'm good at this. I'm good at that. I'm bad at this, right? We start identifying and creating a whole complex idea. What we are looking at here in our work together, in our glorious illumination, is how can we break the habit of identification with the moving, changing? How can we live unidentified in the habitual ways that we have learnt and live as the wildly free, infinite, boundless being, and yet be alive in this human life, right? How can we be unidentified? An unidentified flying object, actually, because we want to always be hovering, right? We're the true UFOs of this realm. We want to always be hovering, never land anywhere, never identify anywhere. Only with yourself, only with reality. Unidentified, undefinable. And so what it is all about is purification. It is the purification that frees us from identification. And it is the glorious play of life that shows us exactly where the light of awareness needs to shine. And we have the ability to feel the feelings, illuminate, and be completely present with all that is here as the wide open space that is not touched by anything. Now, in this wide open space, we recognize there can be moving, changing elements, thoughts, body sensations, tensions. There can be memories, this attachment to past. There can be, born out of that, there can be ideas and images, imaginings of a future. Everything that happens when we are in identification, we are looking for a context that makes us feel right, a context that makes us feel landed. Okay, this is how I relate to this. This means this is who I am. I feel comfortable here. Okay, I'm okay. Okay, now this comes in. How do I relate to this? Do I like it? Do I not like it? Am I resistant? Am I open to it? Am I stirred by it? What's my judgment? What's my opinion? Am I safe here? Right? Everything that comes into the field, we're scanning. Am I safe? Am I okay? Am I safe? Am I okay? And as soon as we feel on our radar that something comes in, that I am not safe, I'm not okay, there's some kind of threat in the field here, the habit that has been learned is to immediately project that is making me not feel okay. And then the start of the story of the projection, the opinions, the judgments, that is wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And it's making me feel like this. I don't like that because I don't feel safe. And the only way that I have learned to deal with this is to shut down, project, blame, resist, right? And go through that process that we all know because we've all learned it. And it's still, at the moment, the way that the majority has learned is the way of life, right? So what we are speaking of here is counterintuitive to what we have learned. And so the mind is going to resist, even though you can live the truth of what we speak of, how we speak of meeting everything in life. And we're going to go more into this in a moment. We can directly experience it. We can directly experience the spaciousness and freedom, but we're so habituated to come back to the same system, because as soon as we feel any sense of threat, then we are ready to protect, right? So how do we deal with threat and this instinct, this learned instinct to protect? How do we deal with this learned instinct to identify with the moving, changing? And how can we be with resistance? Recognize it as a protection, recognize kindly its innocence, and that it was learned as a survival mechanism that served at one point in the life. And we're not negating that, but we're recognizing that that whole needs met structure is rooted in a core belief of deficiency and lack, a conditioned human life that is in separation, separate from the whole, separate from love, separate from God. How can we illuminate that that belief in separation is not reality? And everything that we speak of here is offering the possibility to illuminate and to face yourself, face all that you have believed you are, to not turn away, or deny anything, but to meet everything and to trust the intelligence of life to bring forward in consciousness what is ready to surface. Now, this is the process of natural intelligence, is that none of this is personal. It feels very, very personal. Of that, there is no question. But in truth, and we have to speak the truth, because if we lose sight of the truth, we end up in the psychological, in the mind, in the world, and we will just be cycling in the maze, and we will never come to true freedom. We might create spaciousness within the mechanism of the me and a feeling of a slightly more happy me, but we'll never come to complete freedom if we are not in the recognition of truth and reality. So we have to speak the truth. It's not personal. Nothing is personal. There is a mechanism, a wise mechanism at play. And it is completely intelligent and it knows how to move. It's completely impersonal. And yet we acknowledge, of course, that it feels very, very personal and it feels very compelling. And we have learned that that is our survival mechanism. So to be away from that feels very scary and feels like death. So when we start introducing ideas, possibilities of just staying with sensations, being the being, and allowing the sensations to unfold and not move in the learned habitual protective ways in order for them to unwind, unravel into love, into light, into remembrance of true nature, the mind is going to say, this is not okay, this is not okay, this is not okay. This is death. I'm going to die. I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it through, right? Every mind will, in its own way, come to these kind of edges when a breaking orbit is wanting to happen, where a surrender is wanting to happen. And the mind and its protective mechanism and all that it has learned innocently is trying to implement itself. And what we are inviting is that we don't move in those ways, but we stay very still and watch, and we allow the feelings to arise. We allow the wisdom of expression to come forward, right? Now, in this mechanism, everything is intelligently here that is needed to unwind. And what we want to illuminate and invite is that we don't go to the protective story. We don't live in assumption that life is unkind and that we are a victim to life. That in order to unravel our learned way of being with life, which is to project, blame, just be full of opinions and thoughts and judgments, that we use all of this information that flies around in the mind, and instead of listening to it and identifying with it, we observe it, we shine the light upon it, we see it, we hear it, we receive it, and we use it as a means to inquire, is this true? What is really going on here? What is this information really bringing forward? What is it telling you about yourself? What is it telling you about your story? What is it telling you about your core belief? What is it telling you that you believe to be true in this moment? So instead of actually just believing it, identifying with it, and moving in those patterns and cycles of limitation, when we can be still and watch it, illuminate it, we have the possibility of receiving the incredible wisdom and intelligence of the expression, because the expression will always be the voice of a young one. And we want to hear that. We want to hear what the core belief is. We want to hear what this young one has to say without identifying with it. And we also want to pay attention to the feelings and sensations that are arising in the body, because this too is intelligence. Now, when we feel resistance in our wide open, glorious field of I am presence, the mind would say, this is a threat. The being, when we rest in being, we would say, this is something glorious happening. This is an opportunity. This is a gift. This is a message. If resistance is here, if protection is here, this is an opportunity. Something is surfacing, and this surfacing is going to offer the opportunity for something to come forward out of the deep hidden depths, the secret shadowlands, in order to surface and transmute and remember its true nature. This is what we know in reality. Now, when resistance comes up, the mind is going to say, resist, resist, protect, protect. And this is why we want to be so present as the witnessing awareness that's watching it all, not touched by it, recognizes that it's undisturbed, to feel this presence, to feel that resting place, the safety, the true safety. And from here, allow whatever happens in your internal functioning to be a profound inquiry, a revealing, an opening, and a clarifying, and a transmutation of something that could play out as a protection and use the old way, or it could be this incredible opportunity to meet yourself more deeply, to not deny these parts of you. Now, what we're speaking of here, it touches on the edge of what might be considered psychological work. And we don't often go into detail here about this, but we're going to speak a little bit about it, because we don't want to assume that you all actually are fully, well, you are fully equipped. We do assume you're fully equipped, but the habit to go to the mind is so quick that what we're going to speak of here is just a little bit more spaciousness, that if you can actually truly be still with the discord, with the stresses, and allow the natural inquiry to happen in this spaciousness, if you can actually truly feel the feelings, the sensations, be present with yourself, all of your functioning, open to this whole moment, the resistance, the voices, the memories, the need to be right and protect, the ideas, the judgments, the opinions. If you can open to everything that is here and recognize that you have this deeply rooted, peaceful center, which is the presence that is everywhere, the felt sense of being. It is your anchor in the storm. And even if it is just a little weather pattern coming in, or if it's a big storm, if your anchor is rooted in the remembrance of true nature, then you have this capacity to inquire when resistance comes in, instead of acting out the protective defense mechanisms and all of the ways. It could be to distract, it could be to numb, It could be to blame. It could be to enter shame and guilt as a way of distracting. The invitation that we are always offering, but what we are wanting to illuminate and accentuate here is that it requires that you truly give the spaciousness and time to this process that it needs. In love, in presence, in kindness, that instead of moving to the instinctual behavior to protect, that you stop, you notice the resistance, you recognize, okay, this means there's something here that needs my attention, needs this loving presence, and the possibility to inquire here. It is completely natural, and the intelligence will guide it if we are still enough, deep enough, trusting and open enough. The intelligence will guide it. And it is the process of inquiry that happens when we interact. It's not a system. It's an intelligence that follows the cues of the mind and the body. It follows the wisdom that, let's say, could be held as conditioning and act out the same old protective patternings, or we can follow the cues in loving presence and say, what is being offered here? What is this resistance? What is it telling me? What is the story of what is being believed here? What is the threat here? Why am I so discombobulated here? Why am I thrown off? Right? We want to start by, instead of projecting it outwards, be with yourself, take the responsibility and say, this is my reaction. And if it's my reaction here and I don't project blame, there's a possibility for me to meet myself more deeply here. What am I believing about myself here? What is happening here in this trigger? Why am I threatened? Why am I afraid? What is the feeling that is here? Can I allow whatever feelings are here to be here, right? These are the sort of questions that naturally come forward out of the intelligence. What is the deeper message? What's happening here? Where are the feelings? Can we just state true fact? My heart is pounding. My throat is feeling stuck. In the stillness, in the presence, to allow a natural, wise, intelligent inquiry requires for us to be still and present enough with what is happening to allow the natural process of intelligence to be able to unwind. Now, when we interact, I hold you in presence. I won't let you go anywhere, right? Can you have the same kindness with yourself, right? You know, many will say, well, it's hard to do that by myself. That's understandable because the learned instinct is to go to the protection. But the invitation is to use everything that you witness and experience in our interactions and our ways of interacting, everything that you experience in interactions with everyone, because that is the natural intelligence that we all have, right? We all have a natural intelligence, and if we allow it to come forward, it will guide itself. So within your inner functioning, it will guide itself. And the more that we allow it, the better we get at it, we could say. And this is the invitation when we are speaking. Take responsibility, stop, feel the feelings, witness and allow the expression to come forward. What are you believing about yourself? What is the emotion here? Is there fear? Is there anger? Is it okay? Do you feel comfortable to feel anger? Does that feel really, really uncomfortable? Are you able to let that grief just flow? Is it okay to feel sad? Is there something that says, don't feel sad, don't feel sad? See, all of these kind of questionings will naturally come forward in our intelligent functioning when we just stay completely present and we follow the cues. So we follow the cues of life and we follow the cues of the thoughts that want to be projected. We witness the judgments, we witness the opinions. What is happening here? There are so many intricacies to the direction this can go. And we are being guided by what is happening now, right? The great question that you can ask yourself is just, what's happening now? Respond to yourself, right? It's like an internal inquiry with yourself. What's happening now? And let that voice speak. Give that voice the space to express what's happening now. And take the cues from the expression, right? We take the cues from what is being noticed. What is really dominant? Is there a thought, a memory that's really dominant? Then stay really present with that. Stay really present with it. As you stay present with a thought or a memory, it will subside to the extent that you will start to feel the sensations of it more, because it's always about really bringing it back to the sensations. If you can't go, or you're not guided just by the intelligence to go directly to the sensations, just to feel the sensations, feel the aliveness, be so present with, let the expression come, let any words come. Be guided by what is pulling the attention, what is dominant. But don't identify it, right? This is what we're speaking of. Be so aware to not identify with it, but to be aware of it. Shine the light upon it. Bring the warmth of light, of love, of presence to whatever is happening in your inner functioning. And allow the natural wisdom to unfold. To recognize what is the threat, what are you believing about yourself? To recognize that that is your core misunderstanding, that you are separate, right? That you are bad, there's something wrong with you. And to allow that place to express starts to free what is held there. Right? Now we come into moving through these kind of processes together. But as there is more purification happening as we are deepening, it becomes more relevant to ensure that you feel fully supported. Of course, you can at any time ask questions, ask for guidance of where you feel stuck in the process. And this is where it's so important to not feel like you have to present yourself as some kind of fixed persona, to not have ideas of, oh, I really just want to bring forward the celebration. I really want to bring forward this kind of expression. Our gathering and our togetherness is all about acting as a bridge for you to come to the remembrance in a completely autonomous way, not to be dependent upon anything or anyone, but to receive the grace of support so that you are able to recognize that you are fully equipped, that you are fully equipped as the intelligence that knows how. This process naturally comes forward. This is what has been experienced here in the unfolding, is that a natural process unfolds and an ability to hold yourself in the presence and allow the internal functioning to give the cues and to allow this inner voice to speak, to allow there to be a complete freedom of expression. So in a way, we're inviting that instead of life being an assumption and a projection out of shame and guilt and ideas of feeling threatened, feeling that there's something wrong with me, that we start to inquire to unravel this process. What is essential so that this does not become a psychological process is that we are always rooted in the presence of being and always continually referencing back to that which is not touched. And also, we could say that we are referencing in our inquiry, is that true? We could say, is what we're believing about ourselves true? Is it true? Instead of being definitive, it's about questioning everything. And essentially, it really does truly come down to allowing the patterns of limitation in consciousness to unwind. And this always happens by feeling the feelings, the sensations. In truth, the information isn't really that important. The mind loves the information. The mind loves the backstory. The mind loves to find another way to keep itself alive. So we have to be very careful, because it's so compelling to go back into the mental realm and, oh yes, let's explore my past lives. Oh yes, let's explore. Let's get the whole story. But the truth is that the intelligence brings us what we need. That if we enter that kind of process through the mind, we will overwork it, that is for sure. And we will find a position, a new identity. Whereas this is all about being unidentified, hovering. We're not really an unidentified flying object. We're an unidentified hovering being. A UHB. And you plug your UHB into the mothership, right? You plug into source. It's a new kind of connection. You plug your UHB right in to the source, your own source connection. You plug it into the wellspring of truth, where you can feel the sense of being, the sense of presence, that which is not touched. This is the wellspring. Plug yourself in, right? It's like within the play of the world, there can be this, because of the whole play of duality, right? The world is a play of duality. It's all about comparison. And it's either transcend, 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 get away, or it's don't bypass, don't transcend, right? This is better. No, this is better. This will set you free. No, this will set you free. This is on special offer. This is on special offer. Oh, no, this is better. Don't get it wrong. It's all designed to send you into a spin so that you lose your power and connection to your true intelligence, right? Here's another opportunity to give your power away. Only 999, right? Whatever your currency is, right? This is going to give you everything that you need, truly, right? The truth is, any system like that cannot set you free because you're bound within a currency. You're bound within a system. You're bound within an obligation. You're bound within something. The only way to come to freedom is to plug your UHB into the natural source, your autonomy, and to really give yourself the spaciousness, the time, the presence to allow your natural wisdom light to shine, and let the intelligence that knows how be the guide. So in a way, what we're pointing to here is that you have the natural impulse to inquire inside you, right? It's what Ramana spoke of, right? Let's say all systems are an interpretation of the most simple but incredibly mature inquiry, which is, who am I, right? If we're not ready for the depth of maturity of who am I, then we inquire, well, who do I think I am? What do I believe about myself, right? We inquire all around until we come to the true answer, which is the silence, to discover the truth of who you are, that all inquiry is leading us to the ultimate inquiry. On a certain level, when we come to the presence of being and we recognize that we are aware and witnessing, the inquiry that says, well, if I am free of the whole play, then who am I? What am I that is untouched? What am I that is actually free from all that is moving and changing? This is the inquiry that sets you free. Ramana wasn't kidding there, right? He was right on target. But even Ramana, right? Ramana didn't write that inquiry. He never took ownership, like, this is my inquiry, I've got the copyright to that one, right? No, he drew it out of the wisdom source, right? It's been there since before time, we have to say, right? Because it's absolutely natural intelligence to inquire until you come to a stop, that if you find anything in the field, to inquire in order to shift the veils, remove the veils, see through the veiling, the karmic obscurations. Am I bound by this? Is this reality without a thought? Without this thought, who am I? If I believe this thought, how do I feel? If I don't believe the thought, how do I feel? It's this natural intelligence in the inner functioning that allows us to question everything. And we have that inquiry within us. And it's the inquiry, what is this I? Who am I in truth? Am I that one that is afraid? Am I that one? And when we recognize, no, I'm not that one, I am this presence, then what is that? What is that, and why am I distracted by it? What is this offering me? Oh, it wants to come forward. You start seeing, this is a part of me. This is the young part of me that's trying to come to love. This young part of me is saying, I'm held back by the belief that I'm not allowed to be angry. And you say, is it true? Do you believe that? Well, actually, yes, I think I do. So you are allowed to be angry. Be angry. Okay, try it on. I'm angry. I'm angry. I'll get really angry. Okay. That feels really uncomfortable. Try it again, right? Or I'm sad, or I'm hurt, or I'm afraid, or whatever it is. Terrified. Try it on. Let these young places in you express. When you start saying, you're allowed to feel what you feel, you have permission, right? Within your inner functioning, the part of you that knows safety, that you are the safety, the wholeness, starts to say to these places of discord, come forward, I'm here, reveal yourself. Let's feel this together. Let's find out what's hiding here. Right? There's a natural unraveling that starts to happen. And we also we have an absolute adeptness to recognize, okay, I need help with this one. There's something stuck here. I'm not able to really open to this by myself. I might need to be held, supported, witnessed, because sometimes we need to be able to relax deeply enough that there's no trying, right? It has to be completely natural. It's not a trying process. It has to be completely natural. So this is what we are bringing forward. Everything is here. And as purification seems to deepen, we really want to allow the purification, because the purification is what sets us free. It sets us free from these karmic obscurations and these core belief stories that we are somehow bad or broken, lacking. And when we really allow these places that are brought forward by the intelligence of life to be met, we watch them, we feel the feelings, we allow. It's like we hold a space for a rebalancing to happen. So what's actually happening in truth, in consciousness, is this thing that happens with the hands here, right? We have the overarching light, the love, the presence, the recognition of that which is undisturbed. And we have this little place. I believe I'm broken. I believe I'm unlovable. I believe that I'm bad. I'm terrified. Whatever it is, this holds the space of true safety for this to start to open and let the wisdom expression come forward, to feel the feelings, to allow it all to open. What's really happening is a discordant pattern is unwinding, releasing out of limitation into the remembrance of the true unlimited nature. You see, all of these seemingly limited places, they need the guidance. They need to know what they're going towards. They have to have the light of wholeness that says, over here, right? Plug in over here, right? So this is where you plug your UHB in. You plug right in here to this truth. to safety, right? You plug in, and then whatever's unwinding feels that essence nature. You're held, you're seen, love is here. And then the unwinding, the unraveling, and the feeling of being held in the most all-encompassing, loving presence. That only divine love has the power to truly transmute everything. And so without the holding of wholeness, the transmutation will only ever be partial. Now, partial transmutation, you're on your way. That's good stuff. That's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But we want to keep unwinding, unfolding. This is why we can sometimes say, oh, but I've done this work. Haven't I done this? Aren't I done with that already? Haven't I already spoken about this before? Yes, maybe many, many times. But until it opens into wholeness, into the remembrance, into the light, into the remembrance of being love, being light, being unlimited, then there won't be a sense of total freedom, a freedom in the absolute and a freedom in the world. One freedom, right? It's not a competition. Are you free in the absolute? Are you free in the world? Right? Where are you in all of this? What about if you're whole and you're free of the whole system? What if you're free of comparison, free of identification, and you are permanently hovering here as love, permanently hovering here, unidentified, ready to catch any subtleties, anything, any subtlety of feeling threatened, feeling like you could be taken down by life, feeling that you're subtly a victim. Everything is an opportunity. Instead of projecting it out, oh, well, that's because of that one did that, that one did this. None of it really matters. And that's where we really say in truth, we have to bring it all back and resolve it in the one divine heart, right? That the only conspiracy is the mind, is the collective mind that we're bought into. And what we are speaking of here is freedom from the collective mind. We could say we are still one as a, let's say, we could say to start with as a cosmic or universal mind, that we open to that natural functioning. And it's by virtue of that that the internal inquiry can happen. In a way, the universal mind or the cosmic mind is the intelligence, the creative intelligence, right? But we open even deeper. We just keep opening and refining and refining. And it doesn't matter where we are in the unfolding. Wherever we are is perfection. We're working where we are. And what we are offering into the whole is absolutely exemplary perfection. And as long as we are being nourished, because this is a really important part of this whole process too, is that we have to be being nourished by knowing our own truth, by being plugged in to the true source and knowing that the true source is right here as the being that you are. This is where the nourishment happens. Your knowing is the knowing. To know that you are the being, you are the presence. However deep that knowing is, the knowing brings a nectarine nourishment, and it allows everything on all levels, let's say all dimensions, to refine and be rejuvenated. It rejuvenates on the physicality. It rejuvenates and recalibrates on the emotional body, the mental body, the spiritual body, the bliss body. Everything is being rejuvenated when you are truly plugged in to the light, the love that you are. And where your knowing knows is a frequency that you want to be plugged into. It's where nourishment happens. It's unmistakable. You can feel the nourishment, right? And then you start to recognize that when we come together, nourishment is happening. Because you are resting in the presence of being. You're resting in the stillness. When there's a sitting together, you're resting in. But it's not only when we're together, when you're resting in the presence of being. You're plugged in, right? You're being nourished. You're in the flow of nourishment. And you're on every level. It's like the cells are being saturated with light. The systems are being saturated. The nadis are being purified. Everything is being recalibrated and realigned, refined in the resonance, in the finer frequencies as we are opening to them. So this is what we are up to.